an uprising, we're rising up. It's an uprising, we're rising up. It's an uprising.
Hello and welcome to the Green Live Stream. I'm Eyde Arndell with my co-host, Mr. Scott Free. I always go the wrong way. And our guest tonight is Alexandria Keating Sofiakis. I'm not good at that.
Hey,
Alexandria, welcome.
You got it well enough. Hey everyone, hope you're doing well out there.
Yeah. So I hear you have a big announcement to make on our live stream.
I do. So there's this one district, U.S. House District 10 in Illinois, specifically in the northeasternmost corner of Illinois, and it's only had 50 votes for any candidate who wasn't the Democrat or Republican since 2006. I would like to change that, so I'm running for that seat this year. On the Green Party, of course, obviously. If you couldn't guess from the live stream and the poster and everything. So yeah, I'm hoping to start a little something because this place is pretty dang cool. It's really fortunate to have so much wildlife by us. I mean, just within a mile of my house, easily over 70 species of animals. And that's not including all the insects, while also having good accessibility, at least as far as American transportation system standards are concerned, admittedly, to both Chicago and Milwaukee. So it's a pretty good place. Wow. I think it needs some good representatives, and unfortunately, I've not seen any Democrat or Republican party offer of anybody that would qualify as that under my ranking.
Yeah. So your opponent is Brad Schneider.
Yeah.
I looked him up. I was not impressed whatsoever. He is a Zionist. He supports Israel. He just supported their attack on Iran.
Yep.
You know, like everything, all this happens in a vacuum, you know. Oh my gosh. Like, oh, you haven't been doing stuff since, 1948, and you didn't just attack an embassy over here and so tell us why you think he doesn't deserve the seat.
Well, I mean, if you look at his track record, he's inarguably the most pro-Zionist Democrat in Congress, and that's including other folks like Richie Torres and stuff. I mean, just alone, and look at my notes, let me look at my notes here. Over $1 million from AIPAC alone, not including his other super PAC donations. And not only that, but as far as Israel specifically is concerned and the genocide in Gaza at the moment, there was apparently, and I don't even recall this because we've been sending so many weapons to Israel, apparently a slight brief delay in some weapons being shipped to Israel. Most Democrats didn't speak out about it, but you know who did? Brad Schneider condemned Joe Biden for delaying some weapons to Israel, which is coincidental because, of course, Brad Schneider has literally approved every single weapon shipment to Israel. He has equated anti-Zionists with anti-Semites in front of Congress and uploaded it on his own YouTube channel, so he's clearly proud of it. He's perpetuated every stereotypical lie about things under hospitals that weren't there, and the Amsterdam events being anti-Semitic pogroms and all this sort of clearly, obviously false BS and type of stuff. So he's perpetuating a lot of that. He also proudly attended Netanyahu's speech to Congress, and he's condemned Rashida Tlaib and even censured her simply for saying the phrase "from the river to the sea." And that's just from only a couple hours of research. I'm sure the more I look into it, the more damning his record will be. So
I just went to his website and I was pretty appalled.
Yeah.
I mean, the Democrats have become the new Republicans, and I don't know. I don't know what the Republicans are doing. Nobody really knows yet. I know everybody's worried and afraid and all that, but I don't know. Just heard today that Biden okayed missiles to go from Ukraine into Russia, hundreds of miles, which is illegal. And I'm sorry, going to hand the next administration a big shit sandwich. I don't know when they became the party of war. And, it's Congress's job to declare war. And they're just doing it through proxy. I really don't want World War III, but it seems like some folks are intent on doing that. So
Yeah, and I mean, full transparency, I'm a staunch universal anti-imperialist, so I don't wish for Russia to win in the conflict. But clearly, our current approach hasn't been helping. For one, just because of all the amount of money we've been spending for this, which hasn't been going very well. But two, clearly the sanctions haven't been working very well because Russia has been getting like booming economics. I'll have to
Yeah.
look at the stats and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
first off, tariffs tend to not affect the leader itself, which is already not an ideal strategy for opposing a dictatorial like system. You have to go for the guy at the top, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, it hasn't worked. So I'm not really sure what we're doing there. And yeah, it's just very disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah,
You had
sorry,
to dip
I
out for
had
a minute.
terrible echo. I had to go out and get back in. Yeah, and that's why I missed some of the talk already. But yeah, as far as that situation going on in Ukraine, I mean, I don't think that people realize the level to which the U.S. really started that whole thing. I mean, really, decades ago, they've had their eye on Ukraine forever as a way to get into Russia, and I mean, there's audio of Victoria Nuland picking the next leader of Ukraine during the 2014 Maidan coup, which we helped happen through our CIA tactics. And so, you know, we installed that right-wing government. And it's funny that, like, if you go back into the press, and even there was a bill to not fund Ukrainian Nazis, the Azov Battalion. There was a specific bill: don't fund the Azov Battalion. Well, as soon as Russia invaded, all that stuff disappeared. They swiped the internet of everything, all the articles having to do with the Nazi problem in Ukraine. And basically, we did that on purpose. We wanted a right-wing extreme government in there. And immediately they started attacking ethnic Russian Ukrainians in Donbass. So, I mean, supposedly the Russian people were kind of pissed at Putin for him to take so long to get in there, because, you know, their families were being killed. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a long history that because of the massive propaganda that goes on in our country, you know, the liberals and, you know, Democrats, they have no idea of that. And all they know is 6 years of Trump Russia collusion, which was completely false, but that was so baked into their heads that by the time this thing happened, it's just, Putin's a dictator, he's trying to take over the world, we got to stop him. So I mean, what they effectively did was get liberals to turn right wing, to turn them pro-war.
Yeah, and completely washing their hands of any of, you know, our blame.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2014, we did a coup. I'm sorry, you know.
Yeah.
I do want to show some comments already. Chibu says, "Hey y'all."
Hey, how's it going, Chibu?
And she says Biden wants to make World War III a Trump problem, but forgets he's the one in office.
Right. You know, and it's I don't know if folks saw him when he finished his speech in the Amazon rainforest and then just turned around and walked into the forest. But I mean, it is true. We'll say Biden and his administration, but we don't really know who's doing these orders. But there's no doubt, that this is an attempt to get us in as far as we can before Trump gets put into office, because Trump talked about wanting to end it. Now, you know, whether that's true or not, who knows? But there's no doubt that this is what it's about. And it's insane that I don't think we've been this close to World War III since World War II.
Well,
I mean,
Kennedy, Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we are definitely there. We are definitely right on the precipice. And, you know, I haven't heard if any strikes happened today. So I don't know if were there strikes from using
I don't know.
But I mean, and you know, it is absolutely true that it's the way they frame it in the press is completely wrong. Those bombs, if they're ATACMS, they use our intelligence. It's NATO in there doing all of this. You know, maybe the person who pushes the button is Ukrainian, but everybody else involved is US NATO. So, I mean,
Yep.
Putin sees it as, okay, NATO, US is now ready to bomb into Russia. And so, yeah, I mean, they've already stated that they already have explicit plans if this is to happen. And they're not good. They are not good. So it's an incredibly dangerous time today.
Yeah. And it's a culmination of a history of just constant foreign policy blunders. I mean, literally, the United States post World War II found itself at the top, and it has constantly violated the own international precedent it set, which, in its own writing, you read it, is already pretty pro-establishment, pro-states that were pro-keeping the borders as they are, generally anti-creating new states, or at least making it incredibly difficult, and things like that. But then we do actions like in Kosovo, which I think the UN was right to step in, but I don't think Kosovo was right to claim independence. And now, because of that, Russia has used that for their justification to say, well, we get to claim these areas in Ukraine as free. And not only that, but the United States and the EU, if they genuinely stood for the democratic principles they uphold, again, I am a vehement anti-imperialist. I oppose US imperialism and Russia. I genuinely believe that Putin is an authoritarian as well. But we had a lot of opportunities to get these current things that are all these issues that are evolving into military conflicts could have gotten them solved in a more peaceful way when the Soviet Union collapsed, and we had Boris Yeltsin, who was someone who was a lot more friendly. And in addition, when it comes to just going to the UN itself, I mean, there are so many instances, such as, and I can't remember the names of the two provinces, but there are parts of Georgia, the country, not the state, which Russia currently occupies. And obviously there's the Kaliningrad area, which is completely disconnected from Russia. And there's just sort of a lot of opportunities where they had to say, hey, these people want to be independent. And right now, Russia's not super militaristic. Let's give them economic aid and, you know, integrate them with the global world. Even if you're from a capitalist perspective, you could clearly see the benefit for them, but we didn't do that. We've ignored them. We've left them out on their own. And because of that, they're now finding themselves targeted and weak. And then we wonder why nobody, as we being the US and Europe, in this case, their politicians, I'm trying to get in their head here. They wonder why we don't trust us, or they don't trust us. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because a perfect example is the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia. There's been a lot of ethnic violence going on between those groups for quite some time, and it was partly obviously instigated by some of the imperialist powers that have controlled the area for quite a while. And we at the UN said, oh, you know, this forced ethnic expulsion of a bunch of Armenians is bad. But we didn't do anything about it. We didn't put any economic sanctions on Azerbaijan. We went to their climate conference and applauded them. It's just, you know what I'm saying? They don't actually, if they were consistent about it, all these instances wouldn't happen. And it's a darn shame, because it means that both imperial sides win, and any sort of genuine anti-imperialist middle gets defeated, and it becomes all US or Russia, not anywhere that actually is primarily dictated by like the democratic wills of the people and stuff like that, or at least more directly when it comes to international affairs, military, and stuff like this.
Yeah.
So
No.
it's unfortunate, because it's been a long time coming, and anybody who has even a somewhat realistic worldview and has some sense of like self-critique could see the obvious coming. But they've just been kind of driving straight towards that wall.
It's
And
funny.
It's embarrassing.
I don't know if you follow Jeffrey Sachs, but he's been asked many times about, so why do you think that our administration does these kinds of things? And he has a long history, like decades long history. And he doesn't have much of an answer other than they're psychopaths. And I mean, really, sometimes you just think that is the answer. They are absolute psychopaths. They play with nuclear bombs like it's nothing. They have no sense of what danger we are putting ourselves in right now. It's horrific.
I would. Oh, go ahead.
No, go.
I was going to say it's because they think that it won't affect them. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we're flyover country. It doesn't matter to them, and we have lost our willingness to do diplomacy, which is how every war ends, how every conflict ends. Eventually, you just lay down your arms and you start talking to people.
Right.
But they've
And
made that impossible.
Again, our press
Chibu has
lies. Our press lies like crazy. I
it's
mean,
inconsistency. Yeah.
yeah, there were two peace treaties. I can't remember now what they were called. I mean, and there's a video of like Putin holding up the one that he signed, but does that ever get play in the press? No. What does our press say? Oh, Putin won't ever negotiate. I mean, complete lies.
Yeah.
Complete lies. Now, I mean, they would have been in a much better situation if they had negotiated early on. It's much worse now. I mean, it's much worse now. But
just want to say hey to Abdul.
Hey.
Greetings.
I know.
And now because everything was echoing for me, I had to get out. So did you talk about Brad Schneider's wonderful APAC influence and
his glorious track record? Yes.
Oh my God.
The very esteemed, brilliant representative, genuinely totally cares about all of his people and totally cares about people's safety.
Yeah, he sounds like Israel first, that's for sure.
Yeah. I was about to say he genuinely condemns his own constituents,
Yeah.
quite literally. So
Wow.
condemns them as terrorists for literally just saying, "Hey, I don't like my taxes going to genocide." That's kind of a problem, man.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know I don't know if you said this, that he has received 1.2 million from APAC.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just he's one of the worst too. One of the worst. I don't know. I mean, it was really shocking for me to see that like every single representative in Congress, Democrat or Republican, is completely APAC funded. I mean, it's scary. It's scary the level of control that APAC
there are
is
only
taking.
like the exceptions are very few and far between. Like gosh, there's that one Republican guy who I'm genuinely
Thomas
Massey.
Massey, yeah, Massey, and some Democrat that I can't recall at the moment. Not someone popular, but but they I agree that tends to be the case for at least 90-95% of Congress.
Well, because the Democratic Party is moving right. They tried to out Republican the Republicans this election.
Yeah.
Kamala's talking about her Glock. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but like, do you not know who you're talking to? Like, I don't think most Democrats are down with that. That's more of a
green. Is because I think the Democratic Party, if they had genuinely serious political analysis and self-reflection and they were trying to win as a party, one, they wouldn't have done the things they've done this election. Two, they wouldn't have the analysis that they had after this election. I mean, I don't know how you could see that in the same district that switched from vehemently Biden to vehemently Trump, but then also vehemently voted for Rashida Tlaib even more confidently than last time. I don't know how you could see that and say it's the lefties that were the problem.
Right.
I don't know how you could say it was the progressive wing of the party that was the problem, especially when so many of them lost a lot of their credibility with their own base by saying, hey, go vote for Harris, even though she's committing genocide, and came up with all this bogus excuses and stuff like that. And then they still turn around and blame them, like me and many folks were telling those people.
Right.
Like it's another case of very obvious to see, and yet they're still intentionally sort of driving the ship towards the iceberg, so to speak, and we're the Titanic.
Yeah.
I mean,
but they think they have their lifeboat in place.
Even I could see this. So, I mean, God forbid, they must have known this for decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I know people probably think I pick on the Dems too much, but Dems promise things that never get done.
Never.
Chibu has a thing here. The Dems tried to court the Nikki Haley and Liz Cheney Democrats. Those don't exist.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I think I saw some stat that said that like Republicans, people who identified as Republicans, vote Republican 99% of the time. Yep. So it's true. They're not going to win any of them over. But, it's because they don't want us there. We are a problem. And so that's kind of the easy way out for them. And it's great with their donors. It just all fits with their donor plans. So, Yeah, it's, I mean, I guess maybe the good thing, I don't know, I still kind of can't understand the brain of a liberal that they would stay. But you would think by now, I mean, the Democrats do not hide that they're right wing. They don't hide it at all. I
I
mean,
was
they're
about to
completely
say,
pro-war. They're completely pro-censorship. I mean, they hate the term right wing, but that's what they are. There's no way around it. They don't have any, you
Yeah.
know, even
Yeah.
their New Deal is drilling and fracking. I mean, there's everything about them is
yeah.
right wing.
Yeah. Yeah. And they had several chances to codify Roe v. Wade, which is
Right.
something they campaign on constantly. They didn't do that.
No.
I don't think they really support, LGBTQ rights either.
Not in
It's
real
kind of like they
terms.
say the right things
Right.
just to like try to convince you to come in and vote, but then they get there and they just do what Republicans do.
Yes. They
You
are
know?
all performative.
Yeah.
Yep, I
The
was
Yeah.
about to
kente
say we're
cloths.
witnessing the intentional self-destruction of the Democratic Party from sort of top down just for the sake of their donor class. I mean, again, as you pointed out, the data shows that they can keep trying to go more right wing and more right wing. Republicans still ain't going to vote for them in overwhelming numbers.
Right.
So we're just watching the slow self-destruction of a party for the
Yeah.
sake of their very
Yeah.
few donor classes.
Yeah, they've lost their authenticity. I don't think people are believing them anymore.
Mhm.
I don't know
Right.
if they ever had it. I think it started under Clinton, the first, bill.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I did when I was a little bit young, but that was, let me put it this way, it was thoroughly burnt out by the time Obama was up for his second election. I had it
Yeah.
when he was coming in, because I was obviously pretty young at the time, and I think even us as Greens should acknowledge that he is a very talented speaker and his ground game was very good.
Oh,
Yeah.
So that was part, I think, of genuinely making people believe in that hope, even though obviously, at least from my perspective, and I was a pretty young kid at the time, I was born in 1997, so I wasn't exactly super old, but even by his second running, I was like, you should probably just stay home and not vote for this guy. Afterwards,
wow.
I eventually learned who the Greens were in third parties and tried convincing them to vote third party every year instead. So at the time, I only knew the two parties because that was all you were taught in school.
Right.
And
Well,
stuff like that.
I started voting Democrat when I started voting way back in the day, and then I saw Ralph Nader, and I was like, wow, he's awesome. So I voted Green, and then they sucked me back in for a long time
Yeah.
because they keep promising you things, and now we know. Now we can thank Bernie for understanding. Doesn't matter how well you do inside of the Democratic Party. If they don't want you, they will crush you.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody that wants things for the people, it might cut into their Pentagon budgets. Like they're like, no, we can't afford that, and yet they failed another audit. I was trying to remember how many
Yes.
times they've been
Pentagon failed their
audited.
seventh. Their seventh
Their
in a row.
seventh audit,
Yes.
like
In a row.
$1 trillion a year
Yes.
going out the door, and we don't know where it's going.
Right.
Can you imagine what we could do with that money here if we could just stop hurting people around the world and blowing stuff up?
Yeah.
And there was actually, thankfully, this content creator, I can't recall their name, but they watch Fox News for me, so I don't have to. And they analyzed one of the more recent conspiracy theories coming up, which is that a lot of what was the recent hurricane again?
Helene.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hurricane Helene. I don't know why I want to say Harvey because they both started with H.
Oh,
Sorry.
right. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. But Hurricane, they were saying that a lot of that money intended for them actually got ciphered to illegal immigrants, which obviously is false. But what I was interesting, and I hate to give myself too much credit, but before that, even as that was happening, as those storms were hitting and they were going to go into those mountainous areas, anybody who's vaguely familiar with geology knows that there's going to be a lot of landslides, a bunch of bad SHIT is going to start happening in the next 24 hours based on the weather radar and stuff like that. I said, you know what? All this money being shipped over to Israel and Ukraine, the billions and billions, if you even give like 20% of that to these Appalachian communities that have been ignored by a lot of their own Republican representation, even if they don't overwhelmingly swing to you, you've started something there. But instead, they didn't do that. They gave them chump change. And now it's given them room. And for people who have ill intent and are more bigoted and, evil intent, who want to blame immigrants and stuff like that, to take that frustration and manipulate it.
Right.
And again, it's another thing, another case, as I'm going to keep saying this entire live stream. it's obvious to anybody who's paying attention well beforehand, and they drive towards it anyways.
Well,
Yeah.
there was a bill on the table for Israel and one for FEMA. Israel got their money, FEMA didn't. It was at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, and they want them to punch down because that way you're not punching up.
Right.
You know, you're not looking at the people that are doing the damage.
And it's so thoroughly integrated in both parties. That's why we need to sort of be stubborn about it and keep trying multiple years. Oh gosh, I lost my point there. Sorry.
Well,
Go
no,
ahead,
I was
Scott.
going to say that News Nation just did a piece where the reporter went to North Carolina and just interviewed people, and it was horrific. I mean, you could see kind of the shock on his face as he's interviewing people. He interviewed a family who was given a FEMA trailer, which I guess they're really pretty bad, and they lost their home, their cars. They are in this trailer with their kids, their dogs, and they had to pay $120 a month for a porta potty. Now that is disgusting. That's what we are making the people of North Carolina who have been tragically hurt to do while we send our money to Ukraine. And Blinken just had a big press conference how he's saying every single dollar that we can possibly get to Ukraine, we will get there before January 20th. And that's our administration's policy while they're buying porta potties in North Carolina.
Like,
I mean,
war.
it's astounding. And again, I kind of don't understand why liberals don't explode. I guess they just want to protect their, the party they love. It doesn't make any sense. How could you not be outraged at this? And I knew it was going to happen. After Katrina, I was like, okay, let's check back in a couple months, see how they're doing. And sure enough, they did their reports. It was horrific. And I knew this was going to happen. It is horrible out there. It's getting cold. I mean, they have nothing. They call FEMA and they don't even get a person. They get a recording saying, we're sorry, but we ran out of funds and we will let you know when Congress comes back into session to give us money. I mean, it's a computer recording that they hear.
Well, kind of like Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth. You can't get a hold of them.
Yeah.
You can't even leave a message. You have to email them. And the last email that I wrote, I saved what I wrote because after you send it, it's kind of gone. Like what you said. I saved it and I put it on Facebook. I said, do not send me another form letter.
Right.
Do not. I want to know your answer. Stop arming Israel. Stop it. What's your answer? Giving lip service to saying, I was the first one that said ceasefire. Well, that was a year ago, dude. And what have you done since then?
Right.
I remember what I was going to say earlier. Even though the odds are grim and it's almost inevitably going to fail and it's going to suck, I think being stubborn in every aspect and using every tool at our table is vital, not just for our own security, but obviously for everybody else's security who are being victims to what our tax dollars are being done for overseas. And so even though I have no faith in my senators, quite frankly, and I think that Bernie Sanders' bill is not going to be successful, that vote is Wednesday. That is tomorrow. So if you still have time, I'm doing it tonight. I'm calling Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin, even though I have no hope that they're going to listen to me. Do it just to exercise any authority you can. It's the same reason why I say vote. It doesn't stop you from protesting 99% of the other time. You just go do that and add it to your toolkit. We need to do everything. Organize, communal action, protest, vote.
One thing,
talk to defenders, even if they're never going to listen to you. Let your voice be heard and have pride in that. Have pride in standing up for the right thing. Even if the society around you is going to ensure that it won't succeed, you still have the moral righteousness. And not only that, but there are so many times in history where that has been the narrative for so long that people believe it. And then suddenly it's no longer true. For how long did people believe that the king was like immune? And then bam, Magna Carta starts putting them a little bit in their place a little bit, We've seen this through time immemorial. Let's look to our ancestors and figure out their lessons and how that can help us. And you find a lot of good answers, honestly.
And certainly BDS has been very successful. They are feeling it. That
yeah.
campaign has been really
Well,
successful.
You
And
know
it
they're
was,
successful because Brad Schneider voted against them.
Of course he
course.
did.
Of course he did.
He voted
One
to
other
make
thing you can
dead
do
money
is
legal or
to
some
go.
way.
One other thing you can do is to go on their social media and make comments.
Yeah.
I did that to
Yeah.
AOC when she was like, "This is a little spicy," cutting down Jill, and I'm like, "Yeah, spicy."
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh goodness. I don't know how much I want to get into the exact comments, but I ripped into Schneider on one of them where he equated anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, and I basically said word for word some of the anti-Semitism that I've experienced in my life, and said, actually, I voted for you one time, and I regret it. That was way back, like the first time I voted for him, and then every single time since I realized who he was, and have never voted for him again. But I've also voted for Jill Stein twice.
Yes.
So bam, there you go. And I've only voted in 3 presidential elections. So 2/3 of the time I'm voting for president, I'm voting
Nice.
for a Jewish president. And the one
Yeah.
time I didn't was when I foolishly decided to vote for Biden because I was afraid of Trump after the first time. And that was such a stupid decision that I still regret it to this day and have massive guilt from it. I mean, being from
No.
the Greek community and knowing that I voted for the guy that helped destroy the 3rd oldest church in all of Christianity is
Yeah.
kind of damning.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know how other people could just see that and not feel that. I
And
could
again-
understand how, because I was in that headspace where things were getting continuously worse. And so from that angle, it looked like, hey, we need to at least stabilize things. So let's get back to the previous person because maybe it was stable. But no, it's been a downward slope the whole time.
Right. No, and again, you're very well informed. Most Christians in this country have no idea that we destroyed the Palestinian Christian church, the oldest. And it's horrific that the propaganda that goes on in our country has people so controlled and they don't realize it. They just don't realize it. Because no, it's right. I mean, Christians have been slaughtered over there too. It's just ugh.
I've kind of lost track of what Chibu's talking about here, so maybe you guys can remember. 7th? I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe she can.
7th district, 7th.
I don't know. That was a few minutes ago, and then that's actually illegal. And then I'm sorry, Chibu, I'm behind. Stop, Edie. That happened. Fill me in.
Music as Chibu. Chibu, you got to come out as a guest.
Oh yes.
Oh God,
We've had her on before.
Let's go.
Come on into the live stream.
I'm so sad.
I bet I know what this is about.
Rally downtown, so that'd be perfect.
I bet I know what this is about. Is whenever the bills were on the table at the same time, and they sent money to Israel and didn't send it to North Carolina. Yeah. That's why I'm like, why do people not pay? I mean, I think people have checked out because it's just so bad. They don't like. What can I do?
And I empathize with that. I went into college originally to study for political science, and I burned myself out of it and ended up going to creative writing instead because it made me a very cynical person. And the reasons why we're upset were reasonable. The conclusions at the time were probably a bit inaccurate, a lot of misanthropic sentiments and stuff like that. In hindsight, I was wrong about that. I can understand where a lot of people are coming from, where they want to just throw out their hands and stuff like that. Because for a while, that's what I did. Yeah. But I've seen the results that nobody's come to save me. There hasn't been some glorious hero in shining armor. Again, since 2006, this district has only gotten 50 votes, when on average it has over 250,000 votes, even in midterm years, and only 50 ever were not for the Democrat or Republican. Meaning basically only 50 votes were not for Brad Schneider or Bob Dole if you voted for the winning candidate. So congratulations.
Like, what a choice.
And to backtrack and expand on the point earlier about the churches, I mean, there's also the Byzantine Church of Jabalia, which was built in 444 and was recently restored in 2022, destroyed in October 2023. The monastery of Saint Hilarion was abandoned 1,500 years ago and buried. So it's got a lot of old information. It became an archaeological site in the late 90s. That's now also been hit by Israeli airstrikes as well. And as mentioned before, the St. Porphyrius Church, Porphyrius Church, 3rd oldest church in Christianity, also destroyed, and 17 people were killed when the roof collapsed in the place. And to give an example of just how absurd that is and how blatantly targeted they've been, and I see this unfortunately with some of my own people in my own Greek community is that they have a lot of Islamophobia, and they buy a lot of this, oh, all Muslims are militant and stuff like this, and this bigotry. But I would just like to point out to folks like that these Orthodox communities have overstood thousands of years of genuinely militant and violent Muslim states. The Umayyads, the Abbasids, the Fatimids, the Ayyubids, the Mamluks, and the Ottomans. The Ottomans even committed genocide against the Greeks. But you know what? These churches still stood, and these communities still stood through all of that. Of that. And yet, in less than 100 years since its creation, Israel has now destroyed people and killed people inside the sanctum by destroying. I mean, how could, especially from the Greek community, and I'm admittedly a little bit more secular myself, I'm somewhat agnostic, my own identity, but like even atheistic Greeks will still celebrate Easter and say, Christos Anesti, Christ is risen, and alithos Anesti, he truly has risen, when greeting each other and stuff like this. You know what I'm saying? The Orthodoxy is a big part of the Greek culture. And so how could you take pride in your people and be like, I'm a proud Greek and stuff like that, and then see that? And that's, again, not ignoring the obvious thing, which is even if it was communities you've never heard of, seeing that happen to innocent people is obviously like an atrocity. Like, clearly. And so it's just, it's really disappointing. And it's especially disappointing for me because I look to my Greek heritage and Greek history as a lot of the reasons why I'm very left-wing in my positions. I mean, like, for example, if you're going to differentiate a mouse and a squirrel in science, you're not going to say, oh, the things that define these creatures are this one has fur, warm blood, and has milk, and this one is warm, has fur, and also gives milk. You're not going to say that. So when you take pride in like Greekness or Greek heritage, and a lot of empires that were colonial like try to trace their history back to it. But if you look at it, being super patriarchal, having a massive empire, slaughtering people, having slavery, genocide, are any of these things that the Greeks have done historically rare or exclusive to the Greeks? No. So how could you define the Greeks by that? You know, they are somewhat rare or unique, and they literally were the people to start the written study of history, a large plethora of gay art compared to all their contemporaries, and the longest continuously used alphabet, giving us a unique record into the ancient wildlife, ancient fauna. There's this one book I'm doing some research on that I found, a rabbit hole that I went down through, called the Hesyche Alexandrini, which was written in, let me get my notes here, over 1,500 years ago, and it has over 50,000 rare Greek words and phrases from that time.
Nice.
And I've been able to trace that to find that there might be some Minoan words we know of. And so that's all stereotypically academic or LGBT. That's all affiliated with the left. So if we're going to define, you know, having pride in the Greek tradition and stuff like that, how could it be defined by colonialism and slavery and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
When every militant authoritarian empire in history has done that. That's not a Greek. That's just an authoritarian thing.
Yeah, you're not unique in that way.
Although we're trying to do our best. I tell you, we are trying
we
to
keep trying though. We keep trying though.
We are certainly doing our
didn't
best.
Didn't they invent democracy though?
Ah, right.
Yeah. Or at the very least, our concept of it. There were obviously cultures at the time who had like a system of like inter-exchange in politics that was more even free than Athenian democracy. But I tend to use democracy. Well, there are two terms. There's true democracy, which means every single person gets a vote. That's sort of the political definition. And the sort of emotional definition that I use, which if you were using obviously strictly Athenian democracy, wasn't very good. Women didn't get to vote, and people could be exiled for sometimes bogus reasons. I mean, sometimes they exiled like tyrants, which was good, but other times it was kind of innocent people, which wasn't so good. But the concept of it, and what I use to like for the term democratize something, is just the process of dispersing power lower down slowly over time, because democracy is Athenian democracy is a response to the previous tyrannos, the previous tyranny, you know, and the centralized rule. And so even though it's admittedly patriarchal and not a good society, it is starting the process of distributing power. Like, for example, when we revolted against the British, a lot of people were claiming democracy and stuff like that. You know, I'm saying the separation of power from a more centralized force and dispersing it, that's democracy. Like in the emotional term for me, at least.
Yeah.
Very
And
well said.
Why did the Democratic Party take that name?
Why did the Democrats
Wow.
cross the road?
Woo.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh Lord, I don't even know where to begin. But it's like every day I learn something that just, I'm like, wow, what is wrong with everyone? You know?
Oh, I think I've said this before, but when you're growing up in a American education system and you hear about the Holocaust and Anne Frank, and you get that picture, and it was always just the past. No, we'll never go back. Now again, in this medium time in between, I'm not paying attention to the genocides happening, right? But now we've got them on our phone. It's right here. It's happening. Everyone knows it's happening. No matter what kind of level of denial they might want to try to put out there, when they lay in their bed at night, they know what's going on. And it is hard. It is really difficult. I break down a lot. I break down a lot because it's just.
For sure.
Oh, it's
and I'm still unlearning, some of those ignorant thoughts that I'm sure have been subconsciously implanted to my brain from the general education system. I mean, and I was naively under the impression that, like, because sometimes let me put it this way. A lot of the stuff you learn in elementary school, even in the common curriculum by high school, they're saying actually all that was wrong and it was the opposite. We weren't as nice to the Native Americans as we said in the happy song with the redwood trees and all that sort of stuff. That was all, as my yaya would say, apsemata, lie in Greek. So, and I was under the naive impression before going to college that, well, at least when I get to university, there might be some of that, but for the most part, it will be gone because we're like going for academic integrity. And let me put it this way, I'm 3 pages into writing a video script about I will say, most of my professors have proven to be that. 99% of them have genuinely proven to be really good educators. And a lot of people in the system are working really hard, but some categories in particular are more vulnerable to misinformation. And I'm writing a probably 5-page eventually paper breaking down all the inaccuracies from our world geography class that I took over the last summer. There were subtle things that I'm like, okay, if this was in high school, I could see this being an acceptable question, because the question was, and it was true or false, was the Marshall Plan a U.S. aid plan post World War II? And here's the thing, if that was in a middle school or high school class, that is all they need to know. And in 90% of cases, that was just mostly used for infrastructure. But again, as a person of Greek descent, guess what all the money from the Marshall Plan to the Greeks got used to wage the Greek Civil War, in which the monarchists and the fascists who helped Metaxas, the fascist government before other fascists fought him. It's a complicated story. And it's also why a lot of Greeks idolize him, because he fought Mussolini and was kicking his butt until Hitler stepped in. And so there are 3 fascists all involved. But, Greeks have obviously, because he was fighting for the Greeks, has misinterpreted that he was so nice, and courts sort of misremembered a lot of the atrocities that he's done, which is very unfortunate. Oh, gosh.
We do have another comment here.
Okay, good, because I lost my point, so that's perfect.
Pretty sure the main point of democracy was the people voting on laws. It was not about all the people getting a vote. It was just that the citizens got to vote on the actual law.
Yeah,
that's not the case.
The problem was that from the outset, blacks could vote, women could vote. Actually, if you didn't own land, you couldn't vote in America. That's the American version. So.
The interesting thing about democracy is that it's a very fluid term, and that's why I separated the political definition from how I interpret it, and went into extensive length about how I interpret it, because I understand, and I can even sympathize with people who say, oh, actually, I view the definition of democracy as meaning this many things. Like a lot of my friends who didn't show up to vote, they view democracy as synonymous with electoralism, and I keep trying to tell them, based on all these times that people in history that were leading revolutions and stuff were shouting democracy, with the sword in the air,
Mhm.
how do you come on, put them together,
Well,
please.
and the
Please
way
put them
it's set
together.
up, and the way it's set up in our country, we don't even have like the illusion of choice anymore.
Oh
It's
my
red or
God.
blue. Everybody else is a joke, according to the red and blue that get paid a lot of money to say those things. And here in Illinois, the the signatures, like the signatures are
Yeah,
outrageous.
yeah.
I
I
mean,
have a whole page just
yeah.
dedicated to called the democratization page, which has a whole page of ideas of how to actually hopefully empower people's votes. Since I'll be in the federal, if I were to win this seat, it'd be a little bit different. I know on the state
Mhm.
level, we're not going for ranked choice voting necessarily. I would probably be pursuing that in Congress because I think that would be
Mhm.
more achievable in Congress, and things like you were just talking about, and giving people, say, election day off as a holiday, that might be kind of helpful to getting people to
Right.
actually show up
Yeah.
and things like this. And
For-
actually,
But
Oh, go
now,
ahead.
ranked
granted,
choice voting,
I'm not an economist. I'm certainly not a genius with numbers, but if it is at all possible to make the numbers work, I don't think we could do a system, even though I appreciate the spirit of it, like Australia, in which you get a fine for not voting. I do like the idea of incentivizing people to vote, but I don't like the idea of punishing people for staying home
yeah,
financially. So what I would do is, for everybody who shows up to vote, regardless if you voted in Mickey Mouse for everything or whatever you wanted to do, everybody gets 25 bucks, 25 to 50
Oh,
bucks.
oh,
you
there we
can't
go.
do that.
And for
You
90%
can't
of the
do that.
families,
You
no,
can't
no,
do that
I
though. That's
know. That's
illegal.
why I wish it would be like a sort of how you get the sticker. Like, regardless if
Ah,
you mailed in or you came in person,
No.
you got like
right,
50 bucks for voting, and it was
But
agnostic to
there's
who you voted
right. The
there,
for.
sticker,
there's a
make the
there's a
sticker a
long
gift card. Come on.
I know why it's
no, you
illegal. I
guys
wish it would
stop.
be.
You guys
No.
Here's
stop.
having
That's
fun.
illegal.
I wish
There's
it
a
was.
long
No, but
history of people
I do
going
want to
around
make
and
a point
buying votes.
that
Yeah,
ranked choice
that's the
voting.
problem. That's the problem,
Hmm?
and that's why I would not like anything like that, and that's why I'm like, that's not something I would put on my platform.
Ah,
Well,
here you
well,
go.
That's why it's
I
on the
think
idea.
people
That's
don't.
why on the idea of notes.
I think people don't realize they have other things to vote for, and
Oh,
that's
for
that's
sure.
the space as the third largest party in the country that we need to build and take that space and give them another option. Ranked choice voting won't work though, unless we're on the ballot.
Right,
That's also true.
So
That's
I've
what I
been
was
kicking
going to get at.
around.
Is that I also wanted
Yeah.
to amend the signature requirement, both on time and quantity of signatures, because I
oh,
think both of those are just absolutely absurd.
Yeah, and you
Abolishing the
need people to
electoral
help
college,
you.
of course.
Do you
That's
know
an
when the
easy one.
signature stuff count or starts? You've got like a year to kind of build up a team and get a plan together, right?
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure we only have 60 days, if I recall correctly, to go door knocking for that specifically.
Mm.
I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that's the thing. And so that's why I was talking earlier before the live stream about how to sort of distribute that with my general plan to try door knocking across the whole
Mhm.
district. So,
Yeah.
and how that fits in time wise.
Yeah, I mean, we need fair ballot access. I mean,
Yeah.
what they have all the money, they're already in the door. Why?
And they
They don't
use,
want the competition is what
and they
it
use
really
welfare
is.
against us. So
Yeah.
it's a brutal situation. That
Oh,
yeah,
there's
we have
another
to make
comment.
changes.
Hang
We
on.
have to make huge changes. Ah, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
When the ancient Greeks first started democracy, people yes.
Yeah. Oh, and we've
I
got
would say
two.
nothing, but generally a lot of
Here's
where
one
the
in real
necessity
time.
of
Hang on.
democracy.
I like the idea of the Green Party having a voter guide on statewide issues and local initiatives.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Excellent.
And
I like that,
I
Chibo.
think that could really help us get some people who are electorally involved for some of the other parties a little bit more onto our side and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Sort of saying, oh, hey, look, we voted like 98% of the ballot the same. You just voted for the one Green Party candidate you could, which was presidential. Well, for me, I had that and an independent because I got to write in for the House. And obviously, I'm not going to vote for Schneider. I'll always vote write in. So still waiting, actually. Speaking of the election, I'm still waiting to see if my vote got counted.
Well, I think they don't
I
have
know
to
for
till December
sure.
6th.
Yeah. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on it because since the independent vote has been so conveniently low, I could definitely track if they have anything. Because right now there are literally 0 votes for anybody other than the Republican or Democrat. And I know for a fact me and my mom voted for the same candidate. And one of my friends on Twitter, who I can't verify, but she did send me a picture of like the sticker I voted, saying I voted for Austin James Ming, you know. So the same person that
That
my
is
mom
so
voted
that
for,
is
the
not.
independent
I'm.
candidate. So we
I've
should
been hearing
see
that a
3
lot.
votes.
I've
We
been hearing
should
that a
see
lot.
3 votes at least. But so far I still see 0 with 98.9% reporting, and it's been that way for a long time. So I'm gonna be keeping an eye on it, and if that number ends up being 0, alarm bells need to be raised. If it's
No,
2,
that's
then maybe
another.
my friend who was on Twitter lied to me. That could have happened, but it should at least be 2.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's another campaign that we actually the Green Party needs to get working on. Is we need to put the pressure on, because
Yes,
you
you're
know
talking
I
about
was
in
an
the
election judge, and
Yeah.
so I was part of the process that determined if a write-in candidate was a valid one or not. So there were valid write-in choices. You know, there was the Free Palestine and all that kind of stuff, which we don't count. That just goes into the regular ballots. But we do look at any write-in, because it goes into the ballot box in a separate spot. If any
Mhm.
write-in was filled in, that's where it goes. And so we did manually check those, put them in a different envelope and sent them off. So yeah, we need to keep track of. We need to be on them with pressure so that they make sure they
And thank
follow
you so much
through.
for doing that. You're
Yeah.
a hero. We need more. We need more. We need more
Yeah.
folks like you. You know.
Well, and if you can't be an election judge, go be a poll watcher.
Yeah, that's another thing the Green Party we have to do. We have to
Mhm.
be poll watching, because they need to know that we're out there looking. That's really important. And
Yeah.
you know, I kind of told this story that I happened to be working at a place that had 2 precincts, and the other precinct was really not organized, and I could see at the end of the night they weren't going to get their writing candidate act together. In fact, I don't want to say too much, but I could tell they were not prepared. I went over there and helped them to make sure that that happened properly, you know. But yeah, no, we have to be putting pressure on this state to take the Green Party more seriously in many, many ways. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Amen.
and you know our what do they call them? Advisory questions still keeps the power out of our hands, and they can decide whether they're going to listen or not.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
other states passed in Missouri, which is red.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
raised the minimum wage and passed, you know, protection for abortion.
that's a
it's
whole other issue that we need to get other in a way. Actually, that is something that isn't even necessarily an electoral issue. I mean, I would think that every single organization out there trying to make change would be interested in uniting to
Mhm.
change the rule in Illinois that says that referendums are non-binding. I
Yeah.
don't know the specifics on that, but we have to make that an issue. And
Absolutely.
every organization would want that, because it's insane.
I already have a title.
Oh, good. All right, let's hear it.
Direct Democracy Campaign.
Yeah, there you go.
We have
Excellent.
another.
I love it.
That's the trait where when we
Say
want to
say what you
start.
actually mean, right?
Oh.
Chaz Burns. I have no hope that we will ever get a third party, even if a third party managed to appeal to both sides without insulting the morals of the other. I just lost
Well,
hope.
I
That's
disagree.
Totally valid to feel. I mean,
I
based on the
disagree,
evidence,
and
even
I
though
think.
I don't agree.
Go ahead, Alexandria.
Oh, sorry.
No.
I totally understand the sentiment, even though I don't agree with it. It is pretty rough. It is pretty nihilistic. That's why you sort of have to sort of do a lot of deep introspection and see how you could take personal pride in standing up for the right thing, even if the right thing feels inevitably doomed to fail. Because as we've seen countless times in history, those are the only people who bring about necessary change in dire circumstances, like throughout history. So, but I definitely am empathetic towards the sentiment, but
Well,
keep fighting, man. Trust me, we just have to keep going. Just be stubborn, be as stubborn as a mule, and we can make it work.
and I also think isn't the largest group, if you want to look at Democrats, Republicans, and non-voters is the largest group. So we absolutely, I don't expect to win liberals over. Chad, you're right about that one. We're not going to win liberals over, but there are so many non-voters. And why are they non-voting? Most of them have just given up on the concept. You know, if we present them with reasons to not give up on the concept, I do think we can make inroads. We absolutely can. No, there's a great video out there. The guy's name is Wrestling with Politics. He's a YouTube, he's got a YouTube channel. He made a great video about, oh, well, wasn't it sad that Jill Stein didn't do very well? He goes, add up all of the independent candidates and third-party candidates. Add them all up. Those are huge numbers. That actually, there are a lot of people that are very interested. Another huge event that I think we need to work on is uniting the left. We have to unite the left. People have to stop being so sectarian and you know, there's just this episode that just happened that Eyde was around as part of, where DSA, for some reason, the brand new Communist Party, ACP, American Communist Party, they already have a beef with DSA in Carbondale, Illinois. And I'm like, come on, you guys just formed. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, let's make enemies right out of the gate, you know? Like
come on.
Yeah, what we need to do is work together. I mean, I'm not going to join another party. I picked my party.
Yeah, but that's not.
That's not how you get fans in your neighborhood. And besides, all of those people but one were from out of town or out of state that came to Carbondale. They weren't locals that I could tell. But before we're over here, we got 4 minutes. But I just wanted to say, 750,000 people voted for Jill. Even after the fear mongering and knowing how bad it was going to be and all that, those are people, if they got active, it would change everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Just if you voted for Jill, join the campaign. Let's start planning for 2026 right now. What Workers Strike Back did in Dearborn, we should replicate that everywhere.
Unbelievable.
They were amazing.
Right.
And Jill was in one precinct. She was 30 votes away from beating Trump too. She beat Kamala.
Right. And there is no doubt, you know, the other take, which is a very negative take, but is that I do
on positivity. Okay.
No, I'm going to have 2 minutes of negativity.
No.
I do think that things are going to collapse. I really do. I think we are on the precipice of a collapse. Things are falling apart in our empire. And if you look at, you know, the crash of 29, the communist and socialist parties were huge. They were huge, and they were trying to make real gains. Now, unfortunately, the empire won in that specific period of history, but there is no doubt the interest out there the potential is tremendous. And as I think things are getting worse with climate catastrophe and this crazy neocon psychopath that we have, I mean, I do think that I do see an independent left growing because.
Well, and there's one more piece to this. Even if you don't win, the more people that vote for a third party, I mean, that's why FDR was pushed into doing the things that he did.
Right.
You have to threaten them by not voting for them. There's
Right.
Mr. Joe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because, you know, if you just keep giving them their vote, they're like, we don't have to listen.
Right.
You know, some of the major things that have happened have been pushing from outside. So even if you think it's going to stay the same, that's the pressure we need to put to bear.
Absolutely.
You can't do it for genocide. What the heck are you waiting for? Maybe people don't understand that it's the same violence that happens on our on our country. Got something from Mr. Joe Harrington, our buddy that was here last week.
Yeah.
Have you seen the latest Jon Stewart episode? He explains the problem with donkeys.
No, I haven't. I saw the previous one though.
We'll check it out.
He's still too dim friendly for me. Like,
he is.
I love Jon. I mean,
yeah. It's mostly historical appreciation. I think Yaya watching his show made her a lot less right wing, even though she's not as left wing as me, obviously. So I think I just appreciate him for pushing her in that direction, even if I don't agree with him. Unlike Bill Maher, who's had the opposite effect.
Oh, he's horrific.
Bill Maher, he's represented.
Absolute worst.
Jon Stewart, I know his heart is good and he's funny.
Yeah.
I love that he took down that CNBC guy. He's like, row 212.
Yeah. And sort of
You
last
know.
second here to sort of backtrack, and like we were talking about with the election, the sort of votes and stuff like that. It's to give us some hope is that any sound political analysis of the election will tell you that that's the direction the country is heading. I mean, Trump's vote, when we're talking 70s of millions of votes for each candidate, his vote only went up by 1 million. That's not
Right.
much of a change.
Mhm.
Right.
Meanwhile, from Biden to Harris went down like 10 million votes.
Right.
So what
I thought it was
happened-
even greater.
And in
Yeah.
addition, the people who stayed home are the largest constituency between Democrat voters, Republican voters, and people who stayed home this election.
Right.
So all of that evidence shows you that there's an opening, there are independents, there are stay-at-homes, there are undecideds, there are people who maybe registered for one party or the other, but just didn't vote for the presidential election even, or just
Right.
chose to stay home only this year because they didn't feel they had good candidates or new candidates even.
And think about this,
So the
Trump.
evidence is pointing that way. It's why people like Tlaib and Patel won their seats even more exorbitantly than before. You know what I'm saying? In same district that Trump beat Harris. It's
Right.
because they want a left-wing option. It's because they want like progressive stuff. It's because they want people to care about their fellow human being. They don't want this war-raging donor class BS.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we
So
just have
I
to
do.
make people more aware that we exist and have them have a little more faith in us, because that's why they're going to the Republicans, because they don't believe in us. They don't believe that any third party is worthwhile investment, and so we just have to keep fighting that fight, because one day eventually, if we keep knocking on that door, one day we're going to get in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I saw the little comment about the Poor People's Campaign. And yes, we were working with them in this election,
Mhm.
and they were here for the DNC. I actually did a concert with them for the DNC protest weekend. So yeah, absolutely. We love Poor People's Conference. They're wonderful.
And that brings me to what I'm going to go do tomorrow. The Muslim Civic Coalition in Springfield is going to be at the Illinois State Capitol.
Yes.
And it's a veto action day. So we get to learn how our legislature works or maybe doesn't work. It's going to be interesting. I invite people to come. I mean, they have a plan. They've got buses. I should have got the website, but just look up Muslim Civic Coalition.
Right.
And yeah, that's happening tomorrow starting at 10 a.m.
Yeah,
Or just show up.
It's an awesome thing. I wish I could go. I read all about it. It's pretty cool.
And
Yeah.
Alexandria, are you going to be? I mean, one thing that we could start with right away is the social media. So, are you going to be setting up things on the Facebooks and Instagrams and all those?
Yeah. So I'm going to be setting up dedicated Twitter and Instagram to the campaign. As far as
Excellent.
YouTube, I'm going to start a political/history channel that for now will probably be dedicated to the campaign and history stuff. And
Excellent.
later I'll probably just go to exclusive history stuff post-campain.
Well,
But the other stuff is just exclusively campaign.
Scott's your guy.
Yeah.
he can help spread it
Absolutely.
around.
Oh
so,
yeah.
So we are 3 minutes
Awesome.
past. We love to chat.
Yeah.
Um,
Always.
Like last time we went for 2
3
hours because
people,
we
we get
started.
3
We
extra
went
minutes.
went off on a tangent on movies, which apparently Scott and I are huge fans. So I just found out he likes silent movies like I do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we have one more comment. Hang on. Chibu said love you.
Yay, Chibu.
I'm gonna see Chibu tomorrow. I'm gonna see
Yeah, Chibu will be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. So thanks everybody for coming, and thank you, Alexandria. Looking forward
And
to seeing
congrats,
what we can
Alexandria.
do.
I'm thrilled. I'm
And-
thrilled that you're running. This is going to be a really good campaign.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I'm
keep
very
an eye
excited.
out for her social medias, and she's gonna need lots of people to knock doors
Yeah.
Yep.
because
Spirit,
because
Northeastern
Zionists,
Illinois,
I don't care
want
who
to
you
start
are, they
doing
need to go.
something, you know who to call.
Well, okay. So Scott, you want to play us out?
Oh, wow. Okay. Let
I
me.
didn't have him ready.
Oh,
We're
crap.
authentic in that way. We
Anyway.
don't pre-plan that.
Hang on, we'll write our own song. I'm already hearing it in my head.
Rising up,
There we go.
We're doing it low budget.
Do it yourself. That's what we are.
it's an uprising, rising